Guys, it's Carissa. I am home from my much anticipated follow-up meeting with our IVF doctor. Mike just dropped me off and went back to work, and I have a splitting headache right now, and I feel awful, but I still have to work a little bit this afternoon, and I really wanted to make a video while this was fresh in my mind. I tried so hard not to stress out about this appointment today, but I just couldn't help it, and now I've got kind of like a post-stress relief headache, I guess. But I feel a lot better about the direction of our next IVF and even our future IUIs, whatever ends up happening. I was told by a few people, including the nurses, that, I was suggested write down your questions so you don't forget them when you're there. But I really only had one major question for the doctor and then a couple other things I was curious about just based on his response to my one question, which was, what is going to take place from this point forward? Because I was so disappointed by my results from our IVF. And he had really taken the time to look at my chart and remembered an awful lot more about, my recent history with them than I would have even expected him to, and I did really appreciate that. A couple of times he joked, like, see, I did go over your chart. And I wanted to be like, bitch, I expect you to go over my chart. That is what we're here for. But really and truly, I am appreciative of that because that's one of the reasons I left our last fertility center was the doctor just didn't seem to know me from anybody else who was there, and he really only looked like he was trying to take money out of my pocket. So I did really appreciate that, and he said that he agreed with how I was feeling, and his first right off the bat, his first suggestion was to get a new AMH level, and that had never occurred to me. He said he thinks that what we were working with in terms of my protocol for the condition I have, having PCOS and having an AMH level of 2.1, they thought that I would respond a certain way and that, that was ideal for me. And most women who have PCOS have a much higher AMH level than I do. Mine's closer to a normal range for what other women have. So he said that is a factor, but he feels wholeheartedly that I did not respond in what would have been a typical or expected way to the drug protocol that they gave me based on my AMH level, having PCOS, and just the other results that they were gathering at the time. So my atypical response to the drugs is definitely something that they are focusing on for the future. It hasn't really changed what happens with IUIs, I've noticed, but IUIs are a whole different situation, so that makes sense to me. But I also think that having a new AMH level, because my numbers that I have now will be 2 years old come this July, so it's really wise to get another look and see if that's drastically changed, which he believes it may have. He said if other than AMH, if I were to test anything else, it wouldn't matter as much as that, which is what I asked him about my thyroid. I haven't had that checked in a while, and although I am on 50 units of Synthroid, what if that's too much or too little at this point? It's been a while, so he agreed and said that that was something that I should also have checked. So I did have my blood drawn today to check my AMH level and my Synthroid, or my thyroid, to see if the Synthroid is at the right dose, and my AMH level, I'll get the results in like a week and a half to 2 weeks. So I'm nervous about what that will be, but I'm so thankful that that's what's happening next, because that will make me feel much more comfortable about going into another IVF cycle. So I did ask him, because it does come up fairly frequently that I look into ovarian drilling. And I have this bizarre kind of intuitive feeling against it. I can't explain it. I hate the idea of doing it. And I just feel like, why lessen my ovarian reserve just to hopefully get better eggs? How bad are my eggs? How would I know? And if I'm going to do an IVF why would I want to get rid of something that could potentially be good? And he agreed, and that made me feel even better. He said that doing that is really only for certain people under certain circumstances, mainly for couples who are trying to do IUI only, because it helps improve the quality of the eggs that are left for a period of time, and it temporarily improves the quality for women with PCOS. But because my AMH is relatively low, it's kind of silly to do something like that because I'm lowering my numbers even more before trying to pump them up with an IVF. And as you know, with IVF, you can have as many eggs as you can produce because they're taking them all out and they are sifting out what is good and bad there. So I was told something towards the end of our appointment, though, that really upset me. It doesn't sit right with me, but there's nothing I can do about it now, and 90% of the issue is on me because I didn't speak up and say anything. I didn't ask any questions. But I told him, he basically said, I do think that IVF is the most progressive approach you can make, towards hopefully starting a family. And he kind of hinted that, if you want more than one child, he said, take all of your circumstances out of this. How many children do you want? And I said, well, I think we want at least 2. And he said, well, being that you've been having unprotected sex for 12 years and you haven't had a child, you're less and less likely to have that second child if we're taking too long to get you the first one. And that makes total sense to me, and that's exactly what I was thinking, which is why, Mike and I have wanted to be so aggressive this year and just make this happen already. But one thing he did say was that he really recommends that we wait to the point of blastocyst stage before transfer. To which I wanted so badly to respond, what do you mean we should have waited? Because we weren't, I feel like I've got a hair somewhere here. It's making me nuts. We weren't given that option. So I just kind of waited to hear him out. And basically he said, 3-day transfers are done for people who have very low numbers. They have poor results. So that's basically us. Because the doctor who owns these centers, the doctor who's in charge of all of this, his feeling is that people want a transfer. Because once they get to that point, they want a transfer. And a lot of them are very spiritual and very faith-driven, and regardless of what science and data tells them, they still want to try. So they still want the eggs implanted regardless of whether or not it looks like they're going to make it or whatever. That was really frustrating to hear, because if we knew we could have refused a 3-day transfer and waited till day 5, I would have felt so much better. It would have sucked. Don't get me wrong. I would have been devastated. But if they had told us at day 5, you don't have anything left, they didn't make it, I would have at least not had to go through that 2-week wait, and we would have been able to get to all of this other stuff so much faster. We would have been much more quick to look into what was wrong. It's easier to say now than to actually do, but at that point I really should have said, hey, why aren't we transferring sooner? Because I assumed that we had bad quality embryos and they were just kind of trying to do a Hail Mary and just stick them in and hope for the best because they weren't going to make it till day 5. But to me, if they look that bad, I wouldn't have wanted to put them in. Well, I found out today, because I hadn't known until this point, that our embryos were really excellent quality. They were super, super high quality. In fact, one of them, he said, was at the morula stage, so it was growing a day ahead, and it was technically like a 4-day embryo. And hearing that makes me feel so torn. It breaks my heart a little bit, actually, because what if we had waited till day 5 and something could have... Basically, because in nature, the egg wouldn't make it to the uterus to implant until around day 5 anyway. That just seems more ideal all around. But it's what happened, and it's not necessarily the case that if we had waited till day 5, something would have worked. They were growing how they were growing. They were what they were. But now I know that going into our next IVF, I can tell them if they call me and say, you're scheduled for a 3-day transfer, I can tell them no. Call us on day 5 and tell us if we have anything to transfer. Because if we do, that's when we'll come in. And it will save us the heartache and all of the agony of waiting to see if things worked. So he said that 85% of their transfers are 5-day transfers. But whenever patients have low results like we did, they transfer on day 3 because the doctor thinks that people, quote unquote, want a transfer at that point. I don't 100% disagree, and I like that he's being an advocate for the patients, but not all patients feel that way. So that was hard to hear. But all of it's empowering information. All of it makes me feel like we are headed in the right direction. We're gathering the right pieces to the puzzle before we get to that stage again. And he agrees, just like I do, thankfully, that what I went through last time was not ideal. I had 12 follicles, I ended up with 7 eggs, and I ended up with 2 embryos, and then I ended up with nothing. And he said, obviously we really want to pump this up and maximize your numbers so that you not only have your first child in that batch, but you have siblings as well that we can freeze and have success from. So I feel better. I don't know why, but I had talked myself into believing that we would be told, well, you have PCOS, you look like you would be a high responder, we're not changing anything. Because up until now, that's pretty much what I've been told. But once we get the AMH levels, which fingers crossed are not dire, we'll be able to move forward from there. And one thing that he said, which I have forgotten in the past, I've completely forgotten, in fact, and so maybe if I say it now, I'll remember, or maybe one of you guys can remind me if I get to a point where I don't seem to be remembering that this is an option. But he said that he is highly accessible through email. He doesn't really have time for phone calls and meetings. Obviously, you have to wait a long time to have with him. But if at any point I have questions for him, I can just email him. And I don't know why I forgot, but all I would have had to do was say, hey, we're getting ready to do another IVF soon. I didn't like my results. What do you think? And I wouldn't have even had to have this meeting with him today. So I felt a little bit foolish not having remembered that, but it just felt good to hear it. I think Mike needed that meeting too, because I think that he's been feeling really helpless and hopeless, and I think that it was what we needed. But from this point forward, these same issues, I can kind of keep track through email with him, because he is out of another office. So he only comes to my center 1 day a week, which is Tuesdays. So the odds of me having appointments on Tuesdays where he is the one who reviews my chart and sees how things are progressing, and where he is the one who gives the input, it's very, very slim. And this way, if I feel like things aren't going in the right direction, all I have to do is send him an email. So I feel we've met with him like twice before, and he has said that before, and I completely forgot. But I will not forget. From now on. So yes, I feel so much better. I don't feel good right now because I have that, after you have something that stresses you out that badly, I just feel like a deflated balloon right now. I just don't feel physically well. Also, for whatever reason, I have had severe cramping, not consistently, but in and out on the Femara this time. I've been taking it in the morning instead of at night. And I don't know if side effects of it or the cramping that would result, I normally sleep through or something, but I've had an awful lot more cramping and kind of bloating feeling. And Femara, I don't normally have any kind of symptoms on other than a little bit of cramping. So I just feel kind of blah. And I also feel a little bit foolish going forward doing this IUI right now, knowing that everything that we're planning to do is for my old numbers, for my old AMH, and it's probably going to end up the same way it did before. However, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'm not going to take any time off. I'm going to keep trying. And so while I'm waiting for my AMH, while I'm waiting to plan my next IVF cycle, which hopefully will be next cycle, but still, I'm going to keep trying, and that's just all I can do. So that's what happened today. I have an appointment for this cycle on Thursday to measure my follicles and plan for when I'm going to start my stims. And that's where things are right now. So thank you for all of your support and for all of your great comments. I do feel really good right now. I'm in a better place right now, mentally and emotionally as well, than I have been in a long time. So, and obviously this meeting helped with that a lot, but I'm going to take that and I'm going to just keep going with it, because I have had some really depressing months. So I'm going to just keep, hopefully, on a sunnier angle. So thank you so much. I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye.